You've coached clients for a long time. You've coached a lot of coaches who coach a lot of clients for a long time. You work with a lot of gyms, and there is a common trend that people do just fall off routine.
Oh yeah,
Like they
for sure.
stop exercise completely. They forget that they were going to eat protein for lunch every day and, just end up doing what they want. So I do think it's an issue that's facing people. And the biggest one is like just throwing in the towel full stop and saying December is a free for all.
Hmm.
How do we make that not an issue?
Yeah, God, I think it's from our standpoint, it has to be conversations, right? It has to be, you know, not us telling, and by me saying us, I mean us as coaches telling clients what's okay and what's not okay, but it's almost, being that sounding board and also being that voice of reason where it's like, we laugh and we're like, oh, it's a 12th, the 24th, you're only eating this percentage, but it's like to someone that is ignorant to that fact, they might think it's everything, right? They might think, if they do have a, sugar cookie in the afternoon on the 24th, that December is completely ruined. So the coach needs to tell that person that that's not actually the case, right? Like there needs to be some education, some conversation occurring there. So I think from a coach's standpoint, it starts with just conversation and just bringing people back down to reality, because I don't think people want to believe those things because they want to believe those things. I just think they're ignorant to the fact that they actually don't make that big of a difference.
Yeah, well, I think the conversation is a huge part of it, right? Setting people up to maybe not have the same routine, but have some routine
Hmm.
throughout December still. Like we know that rhythm is good for people, that having consistent behaviors helps people create great habits. So how can we make sure that we set them up for success at the beginning of the month? By changing expectations a little bit.
Hmm.
Like maybe we're not as, for lack of a better word, dialed in as we were in November or July. Maybe it is we're taking training down from 4 days per week to 3 days per week because they know they're going to have other commitments with friends and family. Maybe it is making training days more flexible rather than being like wed to your training these specific days every single week. Maybe it is allowing for, some changes in nutrition and like being okay with that.
Hmm.
But I think having that conversation, if you haven't already done it, like you probably should have done it 2 weeks ago, but
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
haven't already done it, having it now, like where do you see the challenges in sticking your routine for December with your clients, and every one of them, even if they haven't raised it as an issue, like let's face it, right? Everyone's routine gets thrown off a little bit during this time of the year. So where do you think those challenges are? And then what can we do to create a new routine for you for these next 30 days or so?
Yeah, I mean, everything that you just said, and the first thing that comes to my mind is just like, you just need to personalize it. That's it, right? Like you need to personalize the prescription. So it doesn't change, right? It doesn't change from the other months. It doesn't change from how we usually coach our clients. Everything should be personalized to that person, right? So, if you have to go down from, 4 days of exercise to 3 days of exercise, it's like, what's the reason you're doing that? It's because they're not capable of doing 4 days of exercise because of other circumstances. So what does that mean? You're just personalizing the exercise prescription. In October, November, you had lifestyle prescriptions of like, ensuring people are getting enough hydration or water in. You had someone sleeping 8.5 hours. You had someone following very stringent macros because they were ready and they were capable and all of that. December rolls around and you're in your consultation and they're just like, this month is going to be crazy. Right? I have my parents coming in town. I have a week off of work. I'm taking my parents to, Sedona. We're going to spend the weekend there. It's like, as a coach, that should be alarm bells where it's like, okay, are they capable of doing the things that we did the last couple months this month? No, right? So what do I have to do as a coach? I have to personalize the prescription based on what their capabilities are in the month of December. It's like, don't get off track, right? It's like, okay, can we still drink enough water over this time? Yes. Can we still sleep 8.5 hours? I don't know. Let me ask them that question. What time do your parents go to bed? What do the evenings look like for you? What do the mornings look like for you? It doesn't look like you can get 8.5 in. Maybe we're okay with 7.5 for this month. Is that cool? Yeah, that's okay. Cool. Now the client goes away and they're not stressed out that they missed their 8.5 hours because you understood what they were capable of. You built some clear expectations, and you're like, okay, for the next 30 days, we're sleeping 7.5 hours. That's like the goal, right? We still want to get hydration in. Instead of eating, very particular stringent macros, maybe it's just like, hey, let's build some consistency and balance in nutrition. Maybe there's nothing outside of that. Maybe you're not talking about portion sizes. Maybe you're not talking about anything, because they're capable of understanding what balance looks like. It's like when you have a meal, just make sure it's balanced, right? Equal parts protein, carbs, fat. Boom, out, right? And it's just like they're not tracking that. They're just like intuitively doing that, right? So that's the first thing that comes to mind when it's like, how do we actually attack those things? We have to understand it, and then we have to adjust fire a little bit to make sure that they're capable of doing it.
This is everything that the last year or years or however long you've been working with that client is setting them up to be successful in, though, right? Like, our goal as coaches, we talk about this all the time, is to walk clients towards autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that not by handing out meal plans, not by, giving them exercises and never explaining the intention behind what they're doing in the gym and just allowing them to do that blindly. We educate our clients.
Mm-hmm.
We teach them why they're doing what they're doing. We explain movement patterns. We explain how to appropriately pace aerobic work. We teach them about different protein sources and why variety in vegetables is a good thing. So if you've done that work with your client on the front end, when they're in a new environment, maybe they have access to a new gym, or they're not preparing their food because their family member is in town and is going to be doing more cooking. They're now empowered to still make decisions that support those principles that they've been following. They don't have to, do a back squat because in the hotel gym, they don't have access to a barbell. They're like, okay, it's all good. I've got dumbbells. I'm going to pop a couple dumbbells on my shoulders. And okay, coach had me doing 5 reps for 5 sets. This is going to be pretty easy for 5 reps, so I'm just going to extend it out. I'm going to do 10 reps instead.
Mm-hmm.
For a client to be able to do that and have that self-awareness and autonomy in fitness, that's an awesome thing, but that can't happen today, right? If you're a coach and you haven't been working on that education and you've just kind of been giving them the way versus showing them the way, it's not going to change overnight, but maybe that's a good opportunity for you to set yourself a goal for 2022 to be a better educator.
Yeah, gosh, that's a good one. And it's like we have to also think about what is each individual client's intentions and goals and what are they trying to get to, because what you just laid out in the back squat, I don't have a barbell to go heavy for 5x5. It's like, what if that person's goal and what they think they're going to leave December with is a heavier back squat, right? It's like, that's where it goes back to the conversation, alignment, expectations, all of that. If someone's just like, God, I just want to move my body and feel good on a daily basis, it's like, gosh, that's so easy, right? It's like we can teach people that all day. It just depends on where the person is, and that's just why, the idea of treating everyone as their own n=1 individual, blah blah blah, is just so important, right? And it actually makes the process a lot easier, because you're not just putting a blindfold on and just shooting out there and hoping you hit your target. It's like, yeah, I know your goals, I know your intentions, I know your capabilities. This is what you're doing because this is what you should be doing, right? That's such an easy conversation versus imagine if you were coaching a client, but you couldn't communicate with that client. Imagine you were coaching a client, but you couldn't ask them for subjective feedback. It was just hey, I just need to know times and loads and reps, right? Imagine if you were in that. So that would be hard to coach someone and to see results with them. But because we can actually open our mouths and communicate and use our fingers and type out messages, it actually makes the coaching process so much easier. So I think a lot of people are like, oh man, individual coaching, that seems really hard. I don't know if I can write a program for one person. It's like, what? But you're trying to write a program for 200 people? It's a lot easier to write one for a program for a single person than it is for 200 and see success, if success is what you're trying to get to. So yeah, just, honoring that individual is just so important.
Definitely. Gosh, it allows you to have real talk, right? We have backroom talk, we're here, but we tend to package things differently to how we communicate with our clients. But when you and the client are both clear on, hey, we're doing this back squat because the intention is to get you stronger and you've said that's your specific goal, it's like you got to make that work.
Yeah.
Right? Like if your goal is strength, we got to make sure we keep you fresh throughout December. We got to make sure you're getting your training in. Otherwise, you're not going to get stronger, dude. But if the client's goal is just to move and have consistency and just live a healthy, happy life, then the real talk is, look, this shit doesn't matter as much as you think it does. It matters, but it doesn't have to be as perfect as you think it does. I actually don't care if you do a different squat variation, so long as you do a squat in your training session and you make sure you're hitting your training days throughout the week.
Yeah.
But it just lets you be a little bit more real with people and, again, connect with them on a personal basis.
Yeah, and sometimes you got to, like you said, you got to get real with people, right? If someone's, and this is one of the most frustrating things, I think, for a lot of coaches, is when someone has a particular goal and they have so many other things around them happening in life or whatever the case is, and they just can't get to that goal because of other circumstances that they're not willing to eliminate, right? So if someone comes in and they're like, hey, I need to get stronger in December, but then they're just like, they're in a consultation, like, I need to get stronger in December, I need to do this, I need to do that, I'm ready to roll, give it to me, let's go. And then like every other day they're sending you a message like, oh, well, can't train today. I have this, or I can't do this. I have that. Gosh, I've only got 4 hours of sleep. I don't know why I'm not getting strong. It's like, whoa, let's take a step back, right? It's like the scenario of like the parents are in town for the month and we're, on vacation and we're not sleeping and all of that. It's like, hey, I don't care what your goal, no, don't say this, backroom talk. I don't care what your goal is. You can't accomplish that goal because you can't eliminate the things that you need to eliminate to actually get you there. It's not a bad thing. It's like we need to put that on the back burner for 30 days, right? It's like that's a real conversation that I think needs to be had a lot more, because I think a lot of coaches are just like people pleasers, right? Where they're just like, that's your goal, we're going to do it. We're going to charge ahead. I'm going to make this work. I'm going to beat my head against the wall. I'm going to make this work for you because I'm fucking smart, damn it. Instead of being like, hey, let's have a conversation about all these other things that we may need to talk about. Maybe you don't need to eliminate those things. Maybe we do. I don't know, but we need to figure out what's more important. This goal that you're talking about, or all these other things that are blocking you from getting to that goal. And if this is all those other things, if that's like, either more important or there's no way to eliminate those things, then we have to put this on the back burner. But that's okay. I think a lot of coaches, I won't say most, but I think a lot of coaches just try to charge forward. But you gotta open your clients' brains and teach them in those scenarios too, where it's like, yeah, it's just not happening, right? Or it's not happening on my watch, right? It's like, I'm not gonna burn you out in December, so we're trying to fix this, January through March because I just put you through the ringer. So I think that's another important conversation that needs to be had. And sometimes that's a tough one. And, a lot of clients don't want to hear that stuff. They're like, I'm paying you. Get me here.
Yeah. God, I've played that people-pleasing game and it's exhausting.
Oh, yeah.
It's not fun.
Yeah.